Please join me in welcoming General Anil Chauhan, PVSM, UYSM, AVSM, SM, VSM, Chief of Defence Staff. A very warm welcome to His Excellency, Australia's High Commissioner to India, Mr. Philip Green. We extend a very warm welcome to Padma Shree Dr. Shailesh Nayak, Director, NIAS, former Secretary, Ministry of Earth Sciences. A very warm and hearty welcome to Lieutenant General PGS Pannu, PVSM, AVSM, VSM, retired, Chairman, Space Committee on Defence, SIA-India. We warmly welcome on this stage this morning Air Vice Marshal Sanjay Bhatnagar, VM, VSM, retired, Officiating Director CENJOWS. Also joining us on the days this morning, Dr. Subba Pavuluri, President SIA-India, and a warm welcome to Shree Anil Prakash, Director General SIA-India. A warm and hearty welcome to you all, to the dignitaries on the days, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Day 1 of DefSAT Conference and Exposition. It is a 3-day conference program. And I extend a warm welcome to you all on behalf of Space Industry Association India, an association for space industry, which is the organizer of this 3-day conference and exposition. This morning, we start the program by extending a very warm and hearty welcome to the honored dignitaries who have taken their seats on the dais. May I request Dr. Subba to kindly present a bouquet to the honored dignitaries and please welcome them. We start with welcoming in our midst General Anil Chauhan, PVSM, UYSM, AVSM, SM, VSM, Chief of Defence Staff, our honoured guest. A very warm and hearty welcome to His Excellency, Australia's High Commissioner to India, Mr. Philip Green. We extend a warm welcome to Padma Shree Dr. Shailesh Nayak, Director NIAS, former Secretary, Ministry of Earth Sciences. A warm and hearty welcome to Lieutenant General PGS Pannu, PVSM, AVSM, VSM, retired, Chairman, Space Committee on Defence, SIA-India. A warm and hearty welcome to AVM Sanjay Bhatnagar, VM, VSM, retired, Officiating Director, CENJOWS. Thank you, Dr. Subba, for doing us the honors. I now take the pleasure of requesting Dr. Subba Pavuluri, President SIA-India, to kindly deliver the welcome address.
Namaskar, good morning, all of you. Excellencies, distinguished speakers, esteemed industry colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply honored to share this stage with distinguished personalities like General Anil Chauhan ji, Chief of Defence Staff, His Excellency Mr. Philip Green, Australia's High Commissioner to India, Padma Shree Dr. Shailesh Nayak, Director NIAS and former Secretary Minister of Earth Sciences, AVM Sanjay Bhatnagar, Director CENJOWS, and Lieutenant General PGS Pannu, Chairman Space Committee on Defence for SIA-India, and I extend a warm welcome to all of you, sir. And we've been talking about this DefSAT for a while. And I'm sure that all of you remember that we conducted DefSAT 2023 last year in the same premises here, and it was a roaring success in the sense that how to bring in the space technology for the defense usage. That was the kind of discussion that we had it, and they are formulated into kind of recommendations. That recommendations have been addressed to the Government of India. And we find that Government of India also has come up, Ministry of Defence also come up with some kind of a doctrine in this area. And things are moving very fast in order to make space as integrated part and parcel of the defense in this country. And similarly, 2024, we're going to address similar activities and wherein more operationalization of this to happen in this. And one of the important things is 23, we conducted war games. General Pannu and General Kandare sahab, I think he calls it more of a jugalbandi kind of thing, both of them together conducted the war games in the sense that how a tabletop, a war game can be appreciated by the defense forces and industry together. And similar activity now we're going to do it this year also now. Maybe I think tomorrow we'll have that meeting. And in this, experts like General Pannu and General Kandare and many others will be actively participating in this and guiding this. And I look forward to see active participation by each one of you. And I'm sure end of the seminar, we'll come up with a definitive solutions as how the space can be made use of for the defense sector. And though it is known, now more of actionable items have to be worked out in this regard. And hopefully they're going to happen today this year. Thank you very much. I welcome you once again. Welcome, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Subba Rao, for this warm welcome address. Ladies and gentlemen, as India is getting set to conquer new boundaries, space is not only a challenge but is also a necessity. This morning, we are privileged to have in our midst AVM Sanjay Bhatnagar, officiating director CENJOWS. We are very proud to have you on board as the knowledge partner. May I request you to kindly deliver the thematic address.
General Anil Chauhan, PVSM, UYSM, AVSM, SM, BSM, Chief of Defence Staff, His Excellency Mr. Philip Green, Australian High Commissioner to India, Padma Shri Dr. Shailesh Nayak, Director NIAS, former Secretary Ministry of Earth Sciences, Dr. Neeraj Mittal, Chairman DCC and Secretary Telecom, Dr. Subba Rao, Pavuluri, President SATCOM Industry Association India, Mr. Anil Prakash, Director General and other members of the SIA-India, General Pannu on NIAS, our valued partners, top industry executives here in the in presence, members of the fellow think tanks, esteemed veterans, serving officers from the Indian Armed Forces, members of the CAPF, members from the media, our friends from the friendly foreign countries all present here, also our colleagues and friends who have joined us on the virtual platform. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. I consider myself privileged and honored to be delivering a thematic address for the DefSAT. Most grateful for the 3DS and other senior dignitaries for sparing their valuable time despite commitments to share their inputs, thoughts and ideas on an issue of such major significance for the Indian Armed Forces and all the stakeholders in the Indian space ecosystem. Before I start, a word about CENJOWS. CENJOWS was raised as a consequence to the review of the Kargil Review Committee by initiative taken by MOD through a group of ministers report. It came into being in 2007 as a think tank for promoting jointness, integration and transformation for the Indian Armed Forces. One of the charter of CENJOWS is to facilitate free dialogue and discussion on all issues that have bearing on joint warfare and on formulation of independent policy options. A seminar on space matters is very much one of those initiatives by CENJOWS. I would begin by taking a critical look at a development that we have witnessed in the space domain since the last chapter of DefSAT in April last year. First and foremost, ISRO needs to be congratulated for a string of brilliant successes over the past 1 year. The crowning achievement, of course, has been the soft landing of Chandrayaan-3, also the placement of Aditya Sun Laboratory at L1 point between the Sun and the Earth. India has strengthened its position and claimed to be a legitimate space power. Of course, there's much more in the pipeline in terms of missions to Mars, to the Venus, Gaganyaan, human space flight missions are coming up, and also the nation is eagerly looking forward to having its own Bharat Antariksh station. Last year also witnessed a bigger and significant role being played by our private space industry. The number of space startups have gone up to 204. Close to $400 million of investment has come into these companies. Pixel, for example, has plans of launching 24 Earth observation satellites over the next 2 years, and 6 of them coming up within the next 3 months or so. In the newest launch of the PSLV, Dhruva and also Bellatrix have qualified green technologies and other nanosatellite technology for manufacturing. PSLV has been, a contract for PSLV has been awarded to by ISRO to 2 major players in the sector. Many more things are in the pipeline. On the military front, over the last 1 year especially, Russian invasion to Ukraine has opened a new chapter in space war. In the Israel-Hamas conflict, Israel's long-range Arrow air defense missile system, which is a combination of various multi-layered missile systems, have shot down ballistic missiles fired by Iran Houthis in the Yemen over the Red Sea. This medium-range ballistic missile were intercepted by more than about 100 miles above the Earth, very much into the space domain. So space contestation is already there. Closer home, China has been leaping forward in enhancing its space capabilities. Last year alone, it undertook 67 orbital launches, including 17 by private agencies, thereby putting close to 200 satellites in various orbits. Prior to that, also on an average, especially last 3 years, it has taken about 50 to 60 launches on an average per year. Today, there are more than 5,200 active satellites in the space, owned by about 80 countries. In last year itself, 675 satellites were launched. Many more nations are aspiring to attain indigenous space capabilities. On January 28 last month, Iran claimed to have launched 3 satellites. Now, militaries across the globe, especially post-1991 Gulf War, have witnessed the advantage of information domain by a combination of aerospace assets for decisive force application by decision makers. Trends in militarization of space are indicating that counter space operations capabilities are being developed with an exclusive aim to enable own forces to exploit space capabilities to the best, while at the same time negating adversaries' ability to exploit the same. In order to maintain the desired degree of space control or superiority, new trends are emerging in terms of hypersonic vehicles, fractional orbital bombardment systems, remote proximity operations, space robotic arms, offensive dazzling using high energy lasers, cyber attacks on spacecraft or ground-based space infrastructure. Also, in order to deter the adversary, the countries are developing capabilities both in the kinetic domain as a direct ascent or co-orbital, or also in the non-kinetic domain as electronic warfare, laser, high power microwave, EMP and others. Nations are also building capabilities in the near space domain. HAPS, drones, swarms and other countermeasures are just a part of some of these few examples. Now, Indian space program is expanding and the military space utilization needs to mature alongside. That is a great amount of satisfaction, and further progress that is being tracked is through the 75 defense challenges that the 3 armed forces and DSA has launched. Now, Indian Armed Forces are making a transition from dependence on dual-use technology to having dedicated defense satellites. We at CENJOWS are of the firm opinion that the capability gap needs to be filled up by greater involvement of Indian private sector by employing new high-end transformative technologies like the edge computing, building resilience, redundancies, relaunchable vehicles, launch on demand, resilient PNT, expanded NAVIC coverage, etc. Also, there is a requirement to have a better SSA and space surveillance with the collaboration with other friendly countries and lots more. This seminar deals with this all. The 3-day seminar has been diligently curated to focus on advancing common space security interest. Seminar provides a suitable platform for understanding and discussing the emerging issues and challenges in the space domain. CENJOWS has curated a series of sessions in coordination with SIA-India with panelists from domains of experts and authorities on specific subjects from armed forces, academia, space scientific community, ISRO, and members of the space industry, both Indian and global. We firmly believe that achieving these capabilities should be a national security endeavor, a whole of nation approach. Together, I think we can script a better, secure tomorrow. We are of the firm opinion that seminar would offer an platform to understand the requirements of the armed forces. A clear and frank understanding is requested. Also, issues that have bearing on policy aspects, which is brought out during the course of seminar, are planned to be flagged to the higher level for policy implementation. We thus look forward to a focused deliberation on policy frameworks and application of these emerging technologies. I once again take this opportunity to thank the CDS and all other dignitaries for their presence and support as we look forward to for their visionary guidance. Jai Hind.
Thank you, AVM Bhatnagar, for this thematic address. Ladies and gentlemen, we have in our midst this morning Lieutenant General PGS Pannu. He is Chairman Space Committee on Defence, SIA-India, and I now take the pleasure of requesting him to kindly deliver the Defence Space Address. Please welcome with an applause.
General Anil Chauhan, Chief of Defence Staff, Excellency Mr. Philip Green, Australian High Commissioner, Padma Shhree, Dr. Shailesh Nayak, Dr. Subba, AVM Sanjay Bhatnagar, Mr. Anil Prakash, DG of SIA, and General Khandare, the Principal Advisor to the MOD. Jai Hind, ladies and gentlemen. It is known fact that the space is the fastest growing domain in the history of mankind. While India may have missed the first space revolution, but now we are getting into, or we are much into, the second space revolution. And I'm very certain that with the effort that we are all making collectively, we shall not only participate meaningfully in the second space revolution, but also emerge as leaders, as demonstrated in our endeavors in the peaceful exploration of space, demonstrated by our Chandrayaan mission and the Aditya mission, which is proving India to be an emerging space leader. We have gone past the first cycle of peaceful exploration, which will continue, but I think the international security dynamics are compelling us to go into the military exploration of space. And this transformation is extremely important for us. And I'm very glad that we have Padma Shri, Dr. Shailesh Nayak and Dr. Subba taking a lead to get the industry and the services, the academia, and all the ecosystem together to develop this ecosystem where we can have the Indian space solution for Indian security interests. We know that space is a global common, and it has to be harnessed responsibly and practically, and we need to have a good investment as far as space diplomacy and international cooperation is concerned. And I'm glad we have amidst us the Australian High Commissioner with us. It is gracious of General Anil Chauhan, our CDS, to be at the inauguration of DefSAT 24, which is curated as a 3-day event, as was mentioned by the officiating director, CENJOWS. It is a sequel, as was mentioned by Dr. Subba, of the last year event, where we had almost 200 industrial members participate in it. And what was important was that we had the first industrial space war game. It was highly subscribed, and then, though while we ran some very basic scenarios last time, this time we are back in DefSAT 24 with scenarios which are of the international concern. Of course, certain universities abroad have supported us in curating this, but I think we have to make sure that our industry and academia put together along with the service space community comes to find solutions to the problems which we are going to find through the scenarios which we are going to discuss during the forthcoming industrial space exercise, which is the second exercise. We are also going to be talking about certain key issues, such as how to harness the meshed intelligence for the space warfare. And this is how the future landscape of the military intelligence and the surveillance technologies are going to be brought together. We are also going to configure how C5, I2, Star 2 contributes to the space-enabled precision and deep battles, which not only brings the conventional forces, but also the future of how the Indian Air Force, the strategic forces, the artillery and the drones, and the near space domain comes together to converge to get the Earth observation, sensors, and the PNT put together, communication and data for precision battles. We also are going to evaluate how our defense innovation ecosystem is shaping up. We've had path-breaking IDEX 75 challenges, which were introduced some time back. This DefSAT, we are going to evaluate how these 75 defense challenges have been actually converted to actual use and how the innovation and the ecosystem of the industry has responded to it. DefSAT is the only platform which has been talking about the near space and the space sovereignty. After all, there is a gaping hole between 20 kilometers or more up to 160 kilometers where we are supposed to have sovereignty, but we do not have the means to have sovereignty. Above 100 kilometers, while it becomes outer space, but there is some area which needs to be covered, which can only be covered by developing the near space technologies such as the HAPS, drones, and innovative solutions, so that we have the full and meaningful understanding of the aerospace, and this is the domain which is going to stitch together. This time we have experts who are also going to be discussing smart satellites for defense, balancing robustness and SWAP, that is the size, weight, and power combination for the future of satellites. We are also going to be actually sitting and thrashing out the acquisition process, which is more conventional for acquiring the conventional military hardware. But what happens when we are still developing and innovating our space for military capability? I think we need to have a special tailor-made and calibrated acquisition process for the military-grade space innovations and manufacture. Our research and development, our qualification and testing processes have to be refined, and we have to invest heavily into that. Space warfare is not only space-enabled warfare, but it also talks about space deterrence and space domination. We have to understand that once you throw out your space assets, how are you going to protect them? And how do we evaluate what are the capabilities of the adversaries in the military space domain so that we can take preventive and we can also take proactive operational measures, such as situational awareness in space and space domain awareness are extremely important to understand. How do we create the RPO response, that is the rendezvous proximity operations, and also how are we going to engineer the on-orbit servicing, assembly, and manufacturing, which is the space MRO. We are also going to be joined by experts who are going to clearly lay down roadmaps of communication strategies for modern military operations under contested and electronic warfare environment. How do we bring together the C5 where the space, the SDR, and the other technologies for waveforms comes together, including optical links. We are also going to be discussing how to design a kill web as part of the mosaic warfare, moving away from network centricity, which is complicated, which cannot bring so many millions of sensors together And these million sensors per square kilometer are the ones who are going to be actually using terabytes of information per square kilometer. And how do we power them through electricity or uninterrupted power supply? We also need to understand how the ground segment is going to shape up. What are the ground terminals, whether it is aerial platforms or they are ground-based, mobile, or even man-packed. How the analytics will come in and how the AI is going to shape the decision making. We are also going to talk about the experiences that we've had in the DPSUs and large enterprises who have been contributing sufficiently into the development of the space domain. But how do we sit together and use their experience and knowledge for building industrial corridors dedicated to space? At SIA, we are going to pen down a SIA report on military space and guidelines for which we need the support of the research and development organizations, the academia, the service community, and also to bring specialists in writing policies, doctrines, and strategies for securing India's security interest for space warfare and domination. In-space exercise is the second industrial war game that we are going to go into. Along with General Khandare, I have the privilege that last year we had oversubscribed exercise, and this time we have opened out new vacancies, and we are going to have much more participation in the industrial war game, where we are going to have the discussions from the MOD, ISRO, DRDO, InSpace, NCIL, NDMA, Niti Aayog, industry, startup, and all that ecosystem that can be brought together along with the service community to discuss those scenarios as I was talking about. I thank the CDS who has held very crucial and distinguished appointments in the national security system for giving due importance to this critical domain of the fourth and the foremost frontier of warfare. His support and guidance will go a long way in shaping the defense space industry to fulfill the rapidly growing needs of the services, in particular as part of the national security framework, as we face urgent need for providing domestic technology and solutions for space-enabled multi-domain warfare. After all, when we look up, we always remember God, but I think the future of God is all space, and foremost is going to be the fourth frontier. If we can have the military aspect secured, I think largely the God will be on our side. And if we do not expect God to just help out, we need the support of all of us sitting here. And in next 3 days, I hope we will be able to contribute meaningfully to the space as far as the military warfare is concerned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Jai Hind.
Thank you, General Pannu, for that very inspirational address. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the privilege of having in our midst this morning Padma Shri Dr. Shailesh Nayak, Director NIAS, former Secretary, Ministry of Earth Sciences. May I now request him to kindly address the August gathering. Please welcome with a hearty applause.
General Anil Chauhan ji, Chief of the Defence Staff, His Excellency Philip Green, High Commissioner, Australian High Commissioner to India, Dr. Subba, President SIA, General Pannu, AVM Sanjay Bhatnagar, Mr. Anil Prakash, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to all of you. And it's really my pleasure to be here to stand before you and share some of my thoughts. As you know that the India started its space from the civilian applications. Unlike all other spacefaring nations, which started with the military and then came to the civil. But the shifting of geopolitical scenario, especially during last 2 decades, has led India to focus on outer space, especially for its defense needs. It is of utmost importance to develop necessary capacity and capability to address the defense need for the space situational awareness, for communication, for electric intelligence, earth observation, navigation, as well as for tracking and data relay. The SSA capability comprising radar, optical, and laser tracking, including institutional and human resources to monitor the space environment, is a prime requirement. The assessment of the orbital parameters can facilitate the purpose and functions of the satellites, especially the spy satellites. Satellites will be also required for the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or normally called the ISR functions, at low Earth orbits. The real-time communications, command, control, communication, computer, etc., and providing internet services to be provided by geosynchronous and orbiting satellites is another major requirement. High-resolution multispectral, hyperspectral, and synthetic aperture radar for monitoring various activities, as well as satellites for weather monitoring, are critical. The constellation of small satellites also to be planned. It is essential that all these requirements of satellites, ground facilities, as well as the application development needs to be quantified and assessment to be made for a short, medium, and long-term requirements. The available technologies with ISRO, along with the capabilities of industry, need to be integrated for realizing these goals. It would be very useful if we can identify this so that industry also can plan and make necessary investment as the funding as well as in the human resources. I'm sure that the presence of the Chief of the Defense Staff here has given high importance to this event, and I'm sure that in near future such requirement would be identified. These 3 days, the requirement of various sensors, processing techniques, type of platforms required, the smart satellites will be discussed, and integration of national capabilities in space for defense needs are crystallized. I wish very fruitful and productive discussion these 3 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And it's a pleasure to have you here with us. Ladies and gentlemen, Australia and India have always had strong bilateral relationship. And today we are privileged to have in our midst this morning His Excellency, Australia's High Commissioner to India, Mr. Philip Breen. May I now request him to kindly address the August gathering. Please welcome with a rousing applause.
Thank you very much, ma'am. General Chauhan, lovely to see you again this morning. Dr. Subba, Dr. Shailesh, Nayak, Lieutenant General Pannu, and my friend Anil, Prakash. Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege and a particular interest of mine to be able to address you briefly today in advance of your very important conference. Australia and India are building a much closer bilateral relationship. India is now one of only 2 countries on the planet with which Australia has an annual leaders meeting, a 2+2 defence and foreign affairs meeting, and a free trade agreement. We have established what we call a comprehensive strategic partnership. That's the highest rank of our partnerships on the globe. You will all have seen our leaders meeting together with the leaders of the United States and Japan in the Quad. And you may also have seen our Prime Ministers riding together in a chariot in Narendra Modi Stadium and in Kudos Stadium in Australia. These are powerful signals of the stronger bilateral relationship that we are building. The strategic domain is a key part of that. Australia and India are partners in the Indo-Pacific. We share an ocean, the Indian Ocean. We share a level of concern about developments in the Indo-Pacific. And we are determined to work together for a region which is open and free, where states can decide their destinies by themselves, where free trade and movement is a normal part of our region, and where states are sovereign and not subject to the coercion of others. Space will form an important fraction of this important bilateral strategic relationship. Let me explain to you briefly how significant space is in our defence vision. Our government undertook a major review of our defence and strategic interests last year, and one of its principal conclusions is that space should now be its own domain in our defence arrangements. That is to say, space has joined land, air, sea, and cyber with its own place in our key 5 domains. We have some unique features which makes the Australian space industry one of the fastest growing space industries in the world. We have unique location, a large continent, satellite tracking capabilities, which for instance were key in tracking your successful Chandrayaan-3 moon lander. We have a continent with few people. The consequence of that is that much of our continent has dark skies, which makes astronomical observation much simpler and more effective. We have a strong robotics industry derived from our huge mining sector, in which robotics is a key part. And finally, we have innovative and fast-growing companies. Indeed, the space industry in Australia is growing at more than 10% per annum, and I'm delighted that there are representatives of that industry with us here today. For us in space, India is a natural partner. India is emerging as a tech giant. It is, as I say, a strategic partner, and it is clearly emerging as your plans and your successors in space demonstrate a leading power in space exploration and engagement. So for us, the task is to take advantage of those complementary advantages and forge a closer relationship between Australia and India and in space. I'm delighted that today we will see the handing over of an MOU between the SIA of Australia and SIA-India. That marks an important new departure in our space collaboration. And may I finally say, General Pannu, I listened carefully to your explanation of what this conference will comprise to these few days. That's an impressive list of fascinating topics. I wish my schedule allowed me to stay for longer. I hope some of my team will be able to stay and brief me later on some of the things you achieve. I wish you very well in what sounds like a very lively and fascinating conference. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your gracious presence here today and for those very encouraging words. Ladies and gentlemen, as mentioned by His Excellency, today we shall be witnessing the signing of an MOU between SIA India and Space Industry Association of Australia. May I request Dr. Subba Pavuluri, who is representing SIA-India, and SIAA is being represented by Air Commodore Terry Van Heeren. He's their director. May I request them both to sign this MOU and kindly exchange it. I believe it's a digital document. Oh, it's a physical document? Why don't you join us on stage? Join us on stage, they'll bring forth the document. There they are, ladies and gentlemen, in the august presence of CDS, as well as His Excellency and all the honored dignitaries on the days. This was a digital document and has been exchanged between the two organizations. So congratulations to both SIA India and SIAA, that is Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged and honored to have in our midst this morning General Anil Chauhan, PVSM, UYSM, AVSM, SM, VSM, Chief of Defence Staff. We're really honored with your presence here today, sir. May I request you to kindly address the august gathering. Please welcome with a rousing applause.
High Commissioner of Australia to India, His Excellency Mr. Philip Green, Dr. Subba, AVM Bhatnagar, Padma Shri Shailesh Nayak, General Pannu, distinguished panelists, speakers, colleagues, officers, ladies and gentlemen. It gave me great pleasure to be here this morning amongst you all for this DefSAT seminar. If you look around, we have a full house today. In fact, people are standing behind. It just shows the kind of interest we all have in this, what Pannu referred to as the fourth domain of warfare, space. Allow me to actually begin by referring to Captain James Kirk from the famous science fiction series, Star Trek, where he says that space is the final frontier. Like other frontiers which lie explored and conquered, space is vast, almost infinite, and lies unexplored. As you begin exploring this final frontier, the opportunities that it extends actually are also vast and all infinite. Actually, we may be limited by our understanding of space by the limits of our imagination. Space is vast, it's huge, and it lies unexplored. And we all have assembled here today to allow our imagination to run wild, trying to reach out that infinite space and explore ideas which General Pannu referred to and was appreciated by His Excellency. These all lie in the domain of security and defense mostly. And actually, it will be incorrect if I don't thank the organizers, AVM Bhatnagar, the SATCOM Industry Association, for conceptualizing this particular event and bringing us all over here together. I'm sanguine we all will benefit from the experience and achievements of this particular seminar. The second industrial space war game planned by the conference will be of special interest to us because of the large number of takeaways which General Pannu referred to, and the expertise of his and General Khandare, who had conducted it last year also, and we look forward to the outcome of this particular war game. Before reflecting on the domestic space industry or how we are looking at defense space is going to shape up as far as the military domain is concerned, let me speak about a few trends which are internationally visible to all of us, which are shaping the space sector. The first major trend has been the increased involvement of private sector. The earlier models, where agencies like NASA, China Airspace, Air in Airspace, or even our ISRO, where the developers as well as service providers has undergone a major shift due to emergence of private players like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Space Force, and there are countless more industries actually in space globally. A nation's military capabilities today are a sum total of its public and private capabilities. Technological developments related to nanosatellites, hyperspectral imaging sensors, satellite antenna arrays, reusable rockets, and advanced propulsion are providing cost-effective and reliable solutions both for civil and military use. Nations like US have already started exploring SATCOM services from private companies to augment military requirements at a much lower cost. The extension of this particular change has been towards sharing of sovereign services with other nations, even for conduct of war. This was unforeseen a couple of years back. Participation of SpaceX, Planet Lab, and Maxar in the recent Ukraine conflict and ease of open source intelligence are some of the recent examples and trends of this particular phenomenon. Space launch market is another segment that has opened up new vistas for space economy of nations. The expenditure trend of the global space economy indicates that it grew by about 8% in 2023, reaching almost 550 billions, and is expected to surge to 1 trillion by 2040. The focus has been towards space to Earth services, but also from space to space options as well. Space manufacturing, space tourism are emerging as new areas of potential growth. Major programs like Amethyst, Lunar Gateway, Europa Clipper are planning to break new boundaries. Such actions, while having certain challenges, will open a host of opportunities which could require nations to explore this unending and what I call as infinite space. As a nation, India too has taken certain key steps to maximize the benefits of space and explore opportunities emerging in this particular domain. Space sector reforms 2020 have unleashed the potential of private sector in the space domain. A level playing field, sharing of ISRO facilities, and adopting a demand-driven approach has energized the private sector and startups in our nation. Space Policy 2023 clearly lays down the framework to support this development. Under the umbrella support of Department of Space, we have InSpace becoming a single window agency for authorizing space-related activities. ISRO as a R&D support nodal agency, and New Space India Limited (NSM) as an exclusive public sector aggregator for commercializing space technologies. Indian space economy, that is currently estimated to be around $8 billion, is expected to grow to $44 billion by the year 2033. The government initiatives like seed funding scheme, 0% GST regime, sharing of test facilities, transfer of technology have provided rightful support to the private industry. This framework, along with alignment of demands and funding support, provide the right environment for private sector to grow. We had only one startup when we all started this in probably 2014. In 2023, we have about 204 startups with almost 54 of them joining actually in the year 2023 itself. As a nation, we have invested close to 123 billions in this sector, bringing our total funding to almost about $380 billion. In the recently announced annual budget, rupees 1 lakh crore corpus for boosting private sector investment in R&D has added a new level of support to this particular emerging segment. Launching of satellite orbital deployers or CubeSat by Dhruva Airspace to development of multi-stage rockets like Vikram-1 by Skyroot Aerospace are some of the achievements of our fledgling space industry. There's a quote actually which says that from little acorns grow mighty oaks, and I'm sure our private sector will become household names in some times with like global players like SpaceX in times to come. Let me focus on the Indian defense requirements in space. Space, as I said earlier, is not only linked to the future of mankind, but also to the survival and success of defense forces in any future battlefield. Space can be used as a force multiplier to enhance combat capabilities in traditional domains of land, sea, and even cyber and air. Some of the focus areas as far as India is concerned are: firstly, to augment capabilities in intelligence gathering and early warning. We are looking at space-based ISR assets utilizing not only optical but hyperspectral, SAR, ELINT, and comet-based sensors and technologies. The concept of large satellites with heavy ISR payloads will give way shortly to low Earth orbit satellites, miniaturized weapons, and reusable rockets. These must be used for building an indigenous multi-sensor ISR constellation. Secondly, Indian Armed Forces cannot remain dependent on foreign constellations for its PNT requirements. PNT services for navigation, synchronization, as well as long-range engagement will require building a secure, reliable, and resilient NAVIC constellation. As a backbone to terrestrial networks, high-speed secure satellite-assisted communication is another area of growth. Investment towards satellite Internet of Things, satellite enabling 5G ecosystem, high-throughput satellites, and LEO satellites need to be undertaken to provide a reliant and resilient coverage. Launch capabilities being the basic building blocks, we should also be investing on launch on demand capabilities in the near future. As the national requirements of ISR, PNT, and communication grow, this will resultantly increase the number of satellites, Indian satellites orbiting the space, and definitely they'll be requiring of securing these particular assets, which will require space situational awareness. This will be based on probably a network of long-range tracking radars, optical telescopes, which are ground or space-based, and corresponding visualization of threats and challenges. The initial baby steps on this direction have been taken by ISRO by Project Netra. The increasing array of space-based platforms will require a robust ground segment also. Based on a site diversity strategy, we would have to set more ground downlink stations interconnected by a wide terrestrial network. And finally, we've talked about the space segment, the ground segment. The user segment is also equally important, which will also need to be developed. And lastly, when we are developing all this, I think we need to look at counter space capabilities which nations are developing as a means of deterrent. And maybe this would be required in future to safeguard our assets. In order to ensure that these capabilities are rightfully utilized, doctrinal and connected concepts need to be developed. Such level of evolution in an emerging and dual-use domain would require an integrated approach from ideation to implementation, from capability development to capability employment. Let me now focus on how the armed forces are getting involved into this particular segment. As the armed forces, we have initiated certain measures to encourage the private industry. 75 space-related challenges were part of Mission DefSpace 2022 under the IDEX. This was the first initiative that was launched by us. Under this IDEX initiative, I am told a total of 5 contracts have already been signed and additional 4 contracts are at various stages of documentation. In similar timelines, a feasibility study of 12 Make-1 challenges are also under progress. To execute our future requirements, if I may make a rough estimate, our outlay in the coming few years would be more than 25,000 crores. It's the right time for the private industry to utilize this opportunity. There's a saying that when you aim high and dream big, you challenge yourselves in ways that you could not have done before. Our leadership has envisioned big targets for the nation, from space augmentation to space exploration. This period may be the Amrit Kal for the private space industry. I think it's time for building a highly capable, Atmanirbhar defense space ecosystem. Our integrated approach, in which civil industry is the important and equal partner, will bear the right fruits in times to come. I exhort the industry to continue their efforts in collaboration with the government for development of a dependable space ecosystem in the country. I am sure that the commitment, focus and understanding that will be shared during this interaction between academia, innovators, entrepreneurs and the military will be vital to develop a future-ready Indian space. I would urge the organizers to share the outcomes on the industrial space war game, which General Pannu had mentioned. And like we said, the ambassador, the High Commissioner was mentioning, which has got interesting topics for all of us, ranging from precision battles to integration of sensor networks, etc. We look forward to a useful interaction. My best wishes to DefSAT, its organizers and all the participants. Thank you everyone and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for those very inspirational words. And thank you especially for the special reference to Captain James T. Kirk. It was an inspiration to many of us, tickling the thought that if someone can imagine it, it is definitely going to happen. And here we are today. It now gives me great pleasure to request Shri Anil Prakash, Director General SIA-India, to kindly propose the vote of thanks.
Good morning, distinguished guests and General Anil Chauhan, CDS, His Excellency Australian High Commissioner to India, Mr. Philip Green, Dr. Shailesh Nayak, Director NIAS, Padma Shree, Dr. Subba, AVSM Sanjay Patnagar, General Pannu. So it was a great honor for us to have a, what is with General Pannu in his own term, mosaic of civil-military fusion. In this room, we are going to talk about, in harmony, how the industry and defense forces can meet and greet each other to build a new forward-looking nation, Bharat. I'm really thankful to General Chauhan, CDS, to spare his valuable time to come and honor this gathering. And we're extremely thankful to His High Commissioner, His Excellency Green Philip, to spare his time to come, although we know he's very busy schedule. And we have a first audience, debut audience of Padma Shree Shailesh Nayak ji to be present with us after awarding Padma Shree to him, his highest order. And we're really thankful to Dr. Subba, his visionary and leadership for the CIA. And we have grown very fast. We are just a 3 years old organization, and the way this is the second in row for conducting DefSAT, I think we are more getting embracing day by day what are the adoption is defense forces is going to be required. I'm really thankful to all our partners and sporting organizations who have lent their support to us. And also I'm very thankful to the audience. You can't see that there are hundreds of audiences sitting outside watching us, our head of mission abroad, and the defense estimation. Thank to General Khandare, visionary. He said, we want include them. So they're all watching us. There are hundreds of them. And, they're watching this program lively for 3 days. Thanks for your participation. With this note, I'm very thankful too, and I conclude my vote of thanks with great honor for August gathering here. And thank you very much, journalists, and thank you very much for His Excellency Philip Green for your presence. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shri Prakash. Dignitaries on the dais, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. That brings us to the end of the inaugural session of DefSAT Conference and Exposition's first day's proceedings. May I now request the Honorable Chief Guest, the Honorable Guest of Honor, to kindly proceed for the exhibition's inauguration. And may I also request you to kindly give us a photo op. May I request you all to please kindly join us in the center for a group photo. So, ladies and gentlemen, as the honored chief guest and the honorable guest of honor are proceeding towards the inaugural of the exhibition, may I request you all to kindly join us for a tea break. Please do remember that we are congregating in this hall for the next session. We would like to start it at sharp 11:30. So please do join us back in time. Please be seated positively by 11:25. See you after the tea break. Thank you.